the RamDev organization. Thank you so much for having us here today. And thank you all for coming. Sorry, we have a few people in the waiting room. Today we have a special guest. We have Amazon headquarters, and representing Amazon is Vaughn Mitchell, and he's the lead for diversity recruitment programs and strategy. And he has two of his colleagues with him who I will allow him to introduce.
Perfect.
So.
Hey, Mark and Kenny, I see you both on. Feel free to unmute as you are. I'm going to say today, this morning you all challenged us greatly with some questions. So I brought pros with me today so I don't get caught off guard this afternoon. Hey, James, I see the coffee again in the background. So with us, I'm going to let Mark and Kenny introduce themselves because they have different backgrounds from a tech perspective, and they're doing different roles with us at Amazon. And for that, I want to kind of help you all see how you take your majors. Hey, Twain. Take your majors and kind of apply them to roles and opportunities in Amazon. So Kenny first, if that's okay.
Sure. So like Vaughn said, my name is Kenny Thompson. I'm a senior software engineer at Amazon. I'm part of AWS on the Ec2 Core Platform team. I guess probably relevant is like my background in school, right? Undergrad, I did computer engineering at Virginia Tech. And then for grad school, I did mathematics at VCU.
Cool. And Mark?
Hey everyone, good afternoon. As Vaughn said, my name is Mark Curtis. I'm a senior solutions architect at AWS. Just to give you an idea of what my background is, I did my schooling was at UVA. I did software engineering at UVA back in 2001. And before I came to Amazon, I was actually doing a lot of software development, mainly in Java for 18 years. And before I actually moved into the solutions architect role, which is more customer facing role here at AWS about just over a year ago now. That's when I joined Amazon. So
perfect. And in today's schedule, Carolyn, we're saying today is a day in the life is how I think I deemed it on the paperwork. Because I've heard many questions, and like, for example, just to throw this out there, I hear many computer science majors have different options to go into different aspects. So again, when I asked Mark and Kenny to join us, and I'm glad they said yes, I just wanted to kind of show that there are different avenues to these different career paths that you're choosing. So your majors are major, but you can do multiple aspects with it. I'm going to mainly be quiet in this process because my background is international business, has nothing to do with tech. So I want to let the folks of the day, the stars of the afternoon, be available. And again, this is sort of like the model of ask anything. But Carolyn, if there's anything else from a structure perspective, please let us know.
Okay, if I could just real quickly go over, I'm sorry, I need to go over some housekeeping. One, if you have any questions and you want to raise your hand, you may be able to do it by clicking down below on the reactions. If not, you can hit Control Y, and then you'll be able to raise your hand that way. And so that works well. And also, I'm going to be putting we have a Google form that you can complete and you can upload your resume. So I'm going to be putting the link to that in the chat box. So please keep your eyes open for that. And also, if you have any questions and you don't want to raise your hand, you are certainly welcome to put it in the chat box, and we'll go ahead and answer those for you. And one last thing, we are going to record this. So I just wanted to make everyone aware. So for those who were unable to make it, they can view it later. So hopefully that will be okay with everyone.
Great.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and start recording now. So.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And, whoever needs to, if you need to share the or look at the screen, I have the screen shared.
Well,
okay.
So I know you all are not shy, so we're just going to open the floor up for questions and again thank Mark and Kenny for spending this afternoon with us, because I know they have multiple things on their meeting schedule. So let's use all the time effectively. I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to sit back, and if there's anything for me, let me know. But otherwise, Mark and Curtis are here to help. Mark and Kenny are here to help with your questions for the afternoon. Thanks for joining in again. Who's first?
I can jump in and ask a question. Hi, my name is Joshna. So I have sort of a unique question in the sense that I graduated last year and then I pursued a medical device startup. But now I'm deciding to transition from a startup landscape to more into a big corporate setting. So for someone who sort of has a non-traditional path in that sense, what are some of your tips and recommendations in terms of how to best prepare for interviews at big tech companies like Amazon?
Yeah, I could start out with that for some. So at Amazon, when you're preparing for an interview at, I don't know about other big tech companies, but certainly Amazon, the most important thing is knowing and going through the leadership principles at Amazon. They're widely distributed. You can find those on the Amazon website, what our leadership principles are. Look at those and think about how you've embodied those leadership principles in your career so far, what you've done so far. Maybe it was in college, maybe in your medical device startup. How did you show you were using those leadership principles? And those are kind of things you're gonna be asked about in your interview as you go through that process. So that's probably the most important thing about the Amazon interview process from my perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that is just make sure you also brush up on all the fundamentals, your CS fundamentals, because at this point in your career is going to be a large part of your interview with the leadership principles, right? And so you want to be able to talk to, especially your startup experience, any type of examples, right? So as you go through them, try to think of specific examples so you can speak to exactly what work you did and how you demonstrated the principles. Have the story ready to tell.
Awesome, thank you.
And also make sure you have metrics. Make sure you know what you did and the actual numbers that, how many of these devices did you put out or whatever the story is. Make sure you have those numbers in there on top of your mind as well, so you can relay those.
Okay, thank you. Those are all really good tips. Appreciate that.
I'm gonna add one last thing. I would be ready to tell your story and why you're trying to transition to Amazon. So if your background is one way, but you're trying to come into this space, then what's your story? Why? What are you looking to gain from this experience on your career, or what value are you going to bring to the table? But again, know your story because you're transitioning. So someone's going to ask that question.
Awesome. Thank you.
I had a question. So my question is, like, how essential would you say an AWS certificate would be to like a career at Amazon Web Services? Like, and which one would you recommend, especially like upcoming interns or like fresh grads to get, like the solutions architect or a cloud practitioner?
So I would say it probably depends on what role you are looking to do at Amazon. I know Kenny can obviously speak to his role. In my role as a solutions architect, I'm working with the entire platform. So I'm looking at all 175 plus services that we have here at AWS and helping customers utilize those services to implement their products that they're developing for their customers. So in my role, I'm required to get those certifications. I don't have to have them ahead of time necessarily when you come in, but the solutions architect associate is definitely the first one I would. You could go with the cloud practitioner first, but if you're ready to go with the solutions architect associate, that would be the one I would recommend for a solutions architect role, just because that gives you that, shows that you have that ability to implement all the different services, not all the different services, but many of the services that we have here at AWS. But I know Kenny in a software development engineer role is probably a little different than my role.
Yeah, it's a little different on our side, whereas we need to know a lot of that information and, the training's available. So it's not necessarily expected that you have those before you come into a software development role, but it's encouraged that you get them once you're here. A lot of the times, or at the very least, you study it. Ec2 Core Platform, a lot of the stuff that we build is, I guess, lower level than what, external customers experience for AWS. So for us, it's more relevant in the sense of you have this fuller picture of what you're actually building and how it interacts with the rest of the world. So it's beneficial to know that even if you're applying for a software engineering role, right? A software development role. And I would say probably at all the levels, not just like, at an entry level, but at the senior and principal levels too. Like it's good to have that perspective when applying for the job.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it probably also be good at this point, kind of just to introduce what the role, especially in particular my role, what we actually do. So we're not doing obviously Kinney's doing the development of the services on the back end. For me as a solutions architect, we're out there face to face with the customers. Well, it used to be face to face with the customers. Hopefully we'll be again. But interacting with the customers on a daily basis, going through their architectures, talking to them about the different services that we have available. We do build a lot of things. We're building proof of concepts generally with the AWS services to then demonstrate to customers and show them how they could utilize the different services, wire them together to implement the products they're looking to develop for their customers, and then helping them through that life cycle, looking at what they can do going forward as well. So it's a lot more customer facing than a general software development role. I mean, I've personally been in a software development role in the past, for 18 years before I came to Amazon and moved to a solutions architect role. So there are definitely a lot of differences there. And so if you'd like to interact with customers, the solutions architect role is a good one to have. But it's also good to have some background in terms of how customers are developing products, going through that software development lifecycle, so that you know what the customers are going through, even though you're not doing it yourself on a day-to-day basis.
Right, thank you. I did have a follow-up question. I believe this is like targeted towards more towards Kinney. Mm-hmm. So I've only heard that a lot of the internship positions at Amazon, if you actually want to develop like actual products and newer things, you'd have to move out to California or like Seattle. I mean, obviously now things are remote, but the internships elsewhere, such as in Nova or other remote locations, wouldn't necessarily be doing as many hands-on things. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that's necessarily correct. I'm actually in Herndon, and
Okay.
like I said, we are Ec2 Core Platform here, our team, and we work on a lot of public-facing features. And
okay,
our interns got to build a lot of stuff that we actually shipped into production from their project.
Oh, awesome. All right, thank you.
I had a question actually. My name's Nathaniel. I'm a senior computer science student. I joined a little late, so I'm not sure if you already went over this, but could you kind of go over like what the actual technical interview process is like, and like what like if there's any like exams or anything like that?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'll start with what the SA goes through, because probably I'm sure there's a different interview process than the SDE role. But from a solutions architect role, it's more talking about going through, being asked questions about things like networking, containers, databases, going through those kind of things that you're going to look at from a service perspective within AWS. There isn't an exam or anything. So we're going through those things. We talk about how would you architect a solution. Would you use a relational database or NoSQL database on the back end, looking at your middle tier, your front end tier, talking about how you would maybe caching and things like that, and when you're architecting different solutions. And then I think I mentioned at the beginning, you probably maybe missed that part, but then there's also the leadership principles at Amazon, a part of it as well. So talking about how you've embodied those leadership principles and giving examples as part of the interview process as well. So from a solutions architect perspective, we don't have a technical exam, but those are the kind of questions we ask in the interview process.
Yeah, for the software development role, it's pretty similar. It is broken up for us kind of into, I guess you would say, like 5 or 6 interviews total. And I think for the entry-level positions, it tends more towards kind of the traditional whiteboarding problems, algorithm problems. And also you're going to have the leadership principle interviews as well, right? So it's like a 70%, 30% split, right? Where it's going to be 70% like algorithm questions, 30% towards leadership principles. And you'd want to be able to, solve those problems in a timely manner. So like if you're trying to prepare for one of those interviews, LeetCode's a great one, because typically, they'll want to get 1 or 2 per interviewer so they can get a strong signal on what you know and how you think. Like the most important thing that they're really looking for is your ability to communicate while solving the problem, because they want to know how you work with others, how you work with them, because they're going to be there to help and guide you through the problem as well. It's not just here's a test, take the test. It's also kind of how do you work with others, right? And how are you actually going to bounce ideas back and forth, and does this all flow well?
Yeah, and one of the other parts that I neglected to mention of the solutions architect interview is actually leading a mock customer meeting in the interview process. So the interview process is divided up between different interviewers, as Kinney said, but then in the essay interview, we actually have in the on-site interview, we actually have a mock customer meeting where you actually present a solution through a PowerPoint deck to the interviewers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I had a question. My name is Sara, and I'm doing my Master's of Computer Science at VCU. And my question was regarding data science and machine learning engineer roles, what level of competency with machine learning algorithms is expected? Is it like, do we have to know all of them in depth, or some of them in depth, or a broad knowledge of all the various kinds of algorithms out there?
So just from the people that I've encountered, it seems that kind of a T-shaped specialization is what's desired, where you have a broad knowledge of what's out there, but you might be deeply focused and able to dive deep in one particular area, right? So having a deep understanding of one, class of machine learning, but having the awareness of what else is out there, so that when you encounter a problem that one solution isn't the optimal solution, you're aware enough of where you should look and who you should talk to, right? Because the idea is to have diversity of thinking, so that if you encounter a problem that your tool set isn't the best to solve, you know who to talk to find the best tools to solve it.
And regarding the interview process, I know algorithms and data structures will always be there in the interview process, but would this machine learning part take up a higher percentage of the weight in the interview than the algorithms questions?
That I don't know. I don't know if for data science and machine learning, how much it differs from the traditional SDE interviews. So I'm not sure how much additional. I know for mine, when I joined, there was also a lot of systems architecture that was added into mine that, for my role. So I would imagine that it would be about the same thing, where there would be dedicated time specific to your role that they're going to want to, look into that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your advice.
I'm keeping some notes here for myself, just, because we also have some technical recruiters that I can reach back out to. And if there's a question that we can't answer, I can kind of reach out to them as well to get more details in that space. So just FYI.
Thank you very much. Very appreciated.
No problem.
I have a question. My name is Twain Gordon. I'm a graduate student in mechanical and nuclear engineering. When it comes onto new hires or new grads, what is expected from them in like a team setting compared to senior employees?
You want to take this one first, Mark?
Yeah, I say it's first. So I know from the solutions architect perspective, for new grads, we actually have a program called Ec2, and it's basically going through and learning the process of becoming a solutions architect, along with all the other new grads that are coming in your cohort. So you're not expected to actually, take on those initial customer meetings and stuff with the SAs that are currently enrolled are doing. You'll get all the training to become an SA, going through things like capstone projects and things like that, with a cohort of new grads, and then you'll get moved into the SA role after that, after you finish that Tech-U process. So that's how it is for the SAs coming out as new grads.
For us, for the software development roles, for new grads, it's when you first start out, like the first few weeks is going to be a lot of just helping you get your orientation as to how everything works, getting, your tool chain set up. And the first tasks that you're given are very direct. There's very little ambiguity for you to have to sort through. So there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of help. So you have your whole team supporting you. and that kind of expands out, right? And as you're there longer, you move towards more senior roles. You become responsible for larger projects and basically removing ambiguity from problems for other people to work on. So in a seat like for a junior new hire at fresh out of college, you're generally just given, a well scoped out feature to implement with a full design. As a senior, you're expected to be able to look at an ambiguous problem and then put together what scoped out features need to be built to solve that problem. So you can actually enable, other engineers to work faster.
Okay, thank you.
I see there's a question in the chat from Naomi asking about how new hires get sorted into certain teams or departments. That I'm not actually sure about. I don't know how it is from your side, Kinney. I believe it from the SA side, it's basically down to where we need the headcount and they get sorted based on that. But I don't know from the SDE side.
It's pretty similar to that here. Typically what happens is our org, each org kind of has the standards of what it needs, and people are hired into that pool and then they're allocated out as to where headcount's needed. And that, but you don't really, unless you want to shift, you don't really need to shift, right? After you're on a team, if you're happy with that team, you're happy with the work, you're completely welcome to stay there. You don't get shuffled around just depending on where headcount slots are. So, but you are completely free to explore if you want to, work with a new technology or a new product that's being worked on. You can totally transfer. It's pretty nice. You have a lot of options here at AWS.
Yeah, and from an SA perspective, and that's saying the same thing. We have obviously the teams are generally based on what type of customers you're working with. For me, I'm working with in the public sector, working with EdTech customers who are developing products for K-12 school systems. There's also commercial customers, there's government sector customers and things like that. So our teams are divided up based on what types of customers you are working with generally. But we also have specialist SA roles. So you could specialize in, say, there are specialist containers SAs, serverless SAs, database SAs, and things like that. So there are a lot of different SA roles out there that you can start off as a generalist SA covering a customer set, and then move into specialist roles, or you could apply for specialist role. And there's, as Kenny said, there's a lot of room for movement as well. You're welcome to apply. Managers are never going to say no. You're not allowed to apply for another job or anything like that within Amazon. So they're always very encouraging people who want to kind of shift their focus and move to a different area. So.
I'm just curious, does everyone, curious as to the number of majors we have in the room today? And two, does everyone have a straight idea of what you want to do? And it may or may not be one of these two roles, but you have something else in mind. I'm just curious to see the breadth of what's happening in this space right now in the room.
I know for me, I'm trying to get an entry-level job in electrical engineering. So I'm trying to gauge my questions around that. And so I don't know how Amazon really, I don't know how those departments sort of operate in comparison to Mark's and Kenny's.
And I guess Vaughn could probably do some, you could probably reach out to some of the technical recruiters on that one. But I will say, I do know we have a large need for electrical engineers. We have a lot of application specific ICs that we do build and use. You can actually, if I remember right, there's a whole public page about our specific, our application specific tooling that you can read about and tell you kind of what things that we do make. So I would encourage you to go look at that and see how interesting any of that looks to you. But I imagine it's probably very similar to, our other engineering interviews and structure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I made a note, James, as well, just to kind of follow up in that space.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
So we have in the chat box, we have Naomi Steele, who said that they're looking for a software engineering internship for this upcoming summer.
And for myself personally, I'm still exploring roles. So I'm not entirely sure yet, but I kind of have an idea of what direction I want to go into.
Okay.
What excites you, Twain? What are you looking for?
So something definitely in IT, even though I'm doing mechanical engineering. I know sales engineering is something that's pretty like at the top of my list. But I'm also looking into like mechanical engineering roles, just looking for somewhere that I can actually apply the knowledge that I've learned and, feel happy about the job I'm doing.
And then we have Naomi Steele. She's looking for an entry-level software position. Sorry, it's moving up. Or sorry, entry-level software development job for next year. Surab is an engineer, a computer science background, and looking for a data science machine learning role. And then Jayant is looking for a software engineering or data science internship for the summer.
Hey, Vaughn, I had a quick question. So I know I'm also like a little bit on the same side that Twain's on, where I'm not really sure what to look into. But could you give us like a brief intro of what do you do in like the product side? Like just an overview, do you know what I mean? Or like on the product, like like the product management or the product design. I don't know if you have fields on those.
So for me as a senior software engineer, for our products, I actually do a large amount of design work, a large amount of doc writing design work. A good chunk of my job is putting together, sufficient documentation proposals to get funding for headcount to get projects done as well. So, and I still get to actually write code, which is the part I love the most. The writing the docs is not the most fun, but the actually building stuff is way more fun. So I still get to do that, just not as much as I used to. It does tend in that direction. I'll tell you that now. So enjoy the early years. It's more getting to build stuff than later years.
And for my role, I'm more focused on helping customers design and architect their systems. So looking at what products they're looking to build for their customers and helping them with how they can implement those in AWS, make them cost efficient and performance efficient. So there's a lot of, we kind of work, as a solutions architect, we work hand in hand as the account team for customers with an account manager. The account manager is the salesperson and we're the solutions architect, and we kind of have different roles there. The account manager obviously is trying to sell the services. We're actually trying to help the customer develop solutions that are going to be cost effective for the customer. So a lot of times looking to help them reduce their cost, their spend in AWS by helping them utilize services in different ways, looking at things like how they're auto scaling systems or looking at maybe moving to serverless architectures and things like that. So we do a lot of design alongside the customer from that perspective, but also obviously developing, like I said earlier, developing proof of concepts. And then we have the opportunity to do produce content as well, like writing blog posts about different architectures that we've maybe encountered with customers or have developed ourselves. They're going to help customers out. We have things like speaking engagements and things like that we can do as well in terms of how we present things that we've been doing with customers. So.
Okay. I was just curious to know because a lot of companies, they have like just specific internships in product design, but it looks like in your roles, you guys do that a lot. It seems like that.
Sorry. Multitasking with meetings and so forth. Any other questions? You have two sharp folks in the room. I'm just here to make them look pretty. But
yeah, actually, I have a question.
Go for it. Go for it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you guys could hear me or not. I came in late because I just got off from work. I actually recently applied for a position with Amazon. I'm just curious. The position that I applied for was an engineering position, but it gave the option of having an engineering degree or an MBA. Is that more of an interface position? Because it was a remote position as well.
We may have to follow up offline on that one because I don't have we can kind of talk offline on that one. Is that fair?
Okay, that's not a problem. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. 'Cause I would want to know the job ID and all that good stuff.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Feel free to ping me privately.
On Zoom, I mean, I'm really new to this, so
I'll provide my contact to Carolyn, and you can follow up. We can connect off of LinkedIn or so forth. We'll talk.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If no one else has a question, mine isn't really much of a question, but I was just wondering if you guys were like willing to look at resumes to see if they were competitive for Amazon.
Yeah, Carol and I, we're talking now about potentially doing a resume type of review and also interview prep workshop. So where I would look to kind of ask some other volunteers internally to kind of help us with that session. So let's keep that on the radar, because I know we have the career fair coming up shortly.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kwong has a question.
Hi. My name is Kwong, and I major in chemical engineering, but I also minor in computer science, but I have a software development background, so I don't know if Amazon hires any chemical engineering that falls in that category.
I mean, it's been my impression that the fact that you have a chemical engineering degree wouldn't stop you. And I would say what I've seen my whole career everywhere, not just Amazon, is, having an engineering degree kind of opens a ton of doors. Once you get that degree and you almost have no idea what you could end up working on, your career is going to be pretty interesting. So I worked with people at my first job out of college that, they got biology degrees, but they were writing C++ code for a living. So there's a lot of variety, and I would say definitely apply if you're interested, because I think you'd have a strong chance, especially if you have the strong fundamentals, and you'll do well in the interview.
Oh, sorry, just a follow-up question. Well, this may sound silly, but like, how technical is a technical interview? Like, when you ask a question, do you expect like a technical answer, or we can answer it generally, or it can be like we don't like, so I don't have like a major in computer science, so I don't know all like about database and stuff, but like you know what I'm saying, like how technical can it get?
Extremely specifically technical, to put it bluntly. So
okay, thank you.
I have a more of a logistical question, kind of related to the career fair. I was wondering if you guys knew when the virtual appointment schedules would be up for Amazon for the career fair, because I tried to find those this morning and I couldn't find any.
I can answer that. They actually should be up within the next day or two. I actually spoke with the representative. And
okay.
So just keep your eyes open. They'll be up shortly.
Awesome.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I can go ahead and ask another.
Sure.
How does Amazon keep you engaged or sort of excited about the work that you do? Like how do you avoid like being burnt out after a few months of doing like, the same thing or being in the same role?
Oh, that's because you're never doing the same thing.
Yeah.
There's always something new to work on. It keeps changing. It's always interesting. So I would say being bored here is not something that you would be concerned about. That doesn't happen. It's very fast-paced.
Absolutely. And for my role, I mean, we got over 175 services at Amazon at AWS, and it's impossible to know all of them. So there's always something new to learn. There's always there's a lot of training, internal training that we provide. So there's always training classes you can look at. You go and explore things yourself to learn about new products or products that are already out there that you just haven't touched before. So there's always things to learn and keep you engaged.
Awesome. Thank you.
Twain, I think this morning What did I say was the #1 leadership principle that we focus on? Do you remember?
I do not.
Customer obsession.
Customer obsession. There you go, Dominic. You get a bagel later. um, so with that being the case of customer obsession, Amazon AWS grew so quickly because we were taking care of our own business as a retail business, and then this kind of grew out of that. So I kind of laughed at. I have to look at the numbers, and I have to be careful how much I say because we're on Zoom, so I can't say too much when it comes to numbers. But to know that we went from 10 to 20 to 40 billion, like bam, in no time, tells us the amount of work that we're doing for our customers. So yeah, you're never bored. You're never bored, and you right now I'm trying to get a vacation. That's what I'm just trying to fit in. I don't know where that's going to happen and when that's going to happen. So I think that's the exciting part about Amazon. If I speak truthfully, this is I think I mentioned my 4th role in 4.5 years, 4 years, 7 months, and some days. So I'm always growing. I started off in it,
10 days.
10. Say that again.
Oh, you said 10 days at the end.
Oh, did you look up my card? Because I'm about to say, wait a minute. But on our phone tool, we have we can track how our start date and how long we've been here. Plus, there's a tool called Old Fart, which I probably shouldn't say that, but it's a tool called Old Fart, and you can kind of tell what percentage did you when you came into the company. So I think I'm in the top. I think I'm in the top 85, 15%, whatever. Like 85% of the company was hired after me, which tells you how fast we're growing.
I got one to add to that, Bon. I started 8 months ago. 50% of the company got hired after me now.
See, crazy growth, crazy, dude. It's crazy. We're going, and this is all because the customers are needing things, and we're designing things for customers at such a fast pace. So you're never really bored. Amazon will give you as much as you're willing to take until you say no. How about? I think that's the best answer. So you need to. I love to see a young person come here and think they can do everything, because I just say, "Oh, ain't that cute?" I just said it to I said, "All right, okay, I'm gonna watch this and see." After a year, they look. I'm like, I know, I told you, slow down. It's a marathon. It's not a, and not that I run. Trust me on that one. But it's a long term. It's a long term process here. So don't try to do it all. But I think if you just want to learn, if you really are honest and interested in learning and just seeing how this company does it, it's amazing to me because the opportunities are endless to keep learning and trying new things, and you never have to stay in the same group twice. So yeah, you're not going to get bored. The question is, when do you feel like you've gained what you needed from this experience? Hopefully never, and you stay forever. But some people say, yep, I came in, I knew exactly what skill sets I wanted to build, and now that I've got that skill set, I'm going to go somewhere else and maybe do my own thing or work for a different company. But you're never going to be bored, so don't worry about that part.
So we have another question in the chat box from Naomi. I see that there's a lot of focus on leadership at Amazon. Does Amazon give ample opportunity for performing in a leadership role? Similarly, does Amazon offer any support for community outreach?
I'm gonna let you all step in for leadership opportunities. I could add on to that after you finish.
Yeah, I would say one of the things I've noticed is Amazon is very proactive and encouraging people to work above their level, to move up the ladder. Like growing, individuals' careers is a very visible goal. Like you see it at all levels that you're trying to pull everyone up. So it's very impressive. Like goals are very clear. People are given opportunities to move up and show their talents. It's very positive. I like it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that, one of the leadership principles is ownership as well. So you always have the opportunity to take a project and jump right into it and take ownership of it, even if you're not, necessarily in a manager role. And there's also the opportunity to move into the manager type roles as well and have leadership from that perspective. But even as an individual contributor, you have plenty of opportunity here at Amazon to take ownership of things, initiatives. If you have an idea, there's a lot. The writing is a big part of the culture here at Amazon. So you also have the opportunity to write a 2-pager or whatever it is with your idea and take ownership of the idea and actually bring it into being. And so there's a lot of opportunity there for performing in the leadership type role.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I have a friend of mine. She wrote her new job. She literally said, speaking of community, I smile because when I started AWS, she was my procurement person. So as I was ordering equipment and dealing with some issues in that place for the data centers, she was my procurement person. And she literally wrote a paper and got a new team. And she became the leader of her own team with positions in Herndon, with IED, London, and Dublin. And her role now, you all may know her, Cornelia Robinson. I don't know if you all know her, but she's out of this space as well. But she wrote her job because she said, as many data centers as we have and going into different areas, have we stopped to look how we impact the community when we go into a new area? And now her role is AWS in the communities, like created a whole group just to make sure that when we go to a neighborhood or go to a community as a new data center, how are we showing up? Are we showing up authentically? Are we intentional about how we not disrupt the community, but we be a part of the community? And I just smile because now some of her work has taken her to India, where, especially during COVID, there's some things I can't say certain things, but there's some things happening that she's been a part of as she's driven that change in the community on our behalf. So yeah, you get to write your path here. There's no one going to, like I think I mentioned earlier, no one's going to hold your hand per se, but you will get the opportunity to show what you have. And no one's going to hold you back. So if you say yes, write your paper or do your work and perform at that next level, then you get promoted. If you see there's a gap, say it. Because we brought you here not to be a robot, but we brought you here because we want to hear what you have to say. And if you can make a change for the customer, help us do it.
And I'll just add one thing to that. It's like you said, if you see a gap, mention it. Just take that wherever you go. When you see a gap, go ahead and write up a solution for it. Come with a solution. Like if you see something that needs to be solved, just solve it. And that bias for action.
Yeah.
That's one of the best things here. And I mean, that's just a piece of advice everyone should just have anyway. So
yeah, we don't say it's not my job, not here.
Exactly.
So example would be when I first started, my role was I can say this now because I'm no longer there, but my role handled the equipment that we had in our data centers and made sure that we sold it. Mm-hmm. What I noticed as a problem was that there was this long process. And at the end of the day, I had to be careful because we're being recorded. I was about to say a word I wasn't supposed to say. I got a lot of ish in my process that didn't belong to me. And I was like, why is this stuff coming down the pipeline and no one's catching it? But I'm being held responsible because I'm at the end of the process flow. And so I literally couldn't say it's not my issue because it was causing an issue. So what I did was I actually mapped out the whole process flow and learned who was up the chain ahead of me at different phases of the process. And I kind of said, this is not working because anytime you skip something, you throw it over the person.
Yo, if we go to Browns like that hill, we can go there, bro.
Charvin? Thanks. I hope I said his name right. But at the end of the day, I had a chance to look at my whole process flow, not my section, just my section. And at the end of the day, I kind of learned what everyone did along the way. In that education process, learn and be curious is one of our guiding principles, leadership principles. I learned some people got involved in the process because they didn't trust stuff. They wanted data and they weren't getting it early enough. I learned some people wanted to be in the process just to say they feel like they were important. I didn't care about you feeling important. I knew you were holding up my process. I knew, so when I learned what different people were doing in the process, I had a chance to kind of go back to the whiteboard and revamp and write a whole new process, very common in AWS or any parts of Amazon. And I took the bottlenecks out and I negotiated with folks and said, no offense, at the end of the day, you're a bottleneck. So for example, if you need numbers, what I'll do is I will write you a report at the end of the month so that you can get everything I've sold this month in one report and you don't have to check everything I do every day. And they were fine with that. I was able to implement I don't know if you know, a hub and spoke process where stuff was coming into one location and we were able to kind of manage all the equipment from that one location and send it out to the different locations that we needed to go to. But also everything I needed to sell, I was able to bring back to that one location. And I sold everything from that one location versus from every location across the US or every location across China or wherever I was. And I created a place where people could come to one location once a week and pick up every equipment they ever needed or needed to buy from us. And I think as you just look at the process and say, how do I make this better? People will work with you. And so I think as I shared this morning, that process went from selling $500,000 of our secondhand equipment or our equipment per year to $26 million the next year, because I was able to remove the bottlenecks and able to work with the team in the whole process flow, not just my section, and say, how do we make this better? And then it went from 26 million to 42 million the next year after that. And then I did a 10-year plan and looked at it's a $1.2 billion business now for Amazon. I don't see it in my paycheck, but that's a whole nother story. But at the end of the day, because I want to tell Jeff, you know that 1.2 billion? Just send it this way. Oh, this is being recorded. Anyway, so yeah, there's opportunities at all times to make a change. And I think you just need to be open to know that your voice matters and you can make an impact. Even if you just have one small section in the process, that one section for me, like I said, grew to owning the whole process. And now I have a new process in AWS, even though I'm not in that team anymore, that when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's the name for my project. That's the one I created. And I know that always. So you have power in just your section. Control it, own it. All right. Anything else?
I had a question about a different topic. My name is Dominic. I'm a freshman and I'm a comp sci major. I'm looking for a software engineering internship for the summer. And this is kind of a question for Kenny, I think. But you mentioned that like whiteboarding is a large part of the technical part of the interview. And I know that the whiteboarding is less about like showing that you know the technical part, but also being able to like communicate well with your understanding to somebody else. And for the people who you've seen done well in whiteboarding, what sorts of things did they perform well on in the interview that made them better communicators?
So I would say it is very important as you first start to formulate your understanding of the problem that you communicate about your assumptions, that you ask the right questions to the interviewer. And it's not so much that they're looking for you to ask particular questions, but the clarifying questions you ask show that you understand how you need to bound the problem, right? Because you want to understand exactly what you're trying to solve. And then using that information to actually apply, like, because essentially you want to bound the problem down to the point where you can understand what it's getting at as far as like what type of specific implementation will solve it. And then as you work towards, building that, going back and forth and receiving feedback, right? Because a lot of questions are designed so that they're going to point you in a direction. And then sometimes, right away you see the optimal solution, but then there's always like a medium solution that would, solve the problem, but maybe not be as programmatically efficient. So, the interviewer at that point kind of like, okay, so this solves it now, what's the big O, right? Like, how does it perform? How does it scale? And then they're going to want you to work with them to improve it, because that's what reality is. A lot of the times, a lot of the big wins come from making improvements in, software that if you can cut the execution time down, it makes the life better for the customer and for us, right? Because we're spending less money actually running those processes. So
I had a follow-up question to that. So like you recommended practicing on like lead code. So in the case that like you've seen a similar problem before on lead code and it's like a solution where you're aware of like an optimal solution, how would you go about continuing that communication process?
So that's actually like, usually an interviewer is going to show up with a few problems ready to go. So if you've already practiced this problem and you've done it on lead code before and you know it, I mean, go ahead and just tell them and show the solution real quick, because then they also know that, you've seen this, you understand what's going on, and you can explain it in depth. And because if you've looked at lead code, you've noticed that a lot of the problems have multiple levels of solutions, right? Like you can see there's like percentiles is what execution time your solution is going to have as well. So there's a big difference between, the solution that is in the 50th percentile and the 95th. And so I would still just tell them, yeah, I've seen this before. I know this about it, and put it on the board. And then you can optimize from there. And if it is the optimal solution, maybe they'll ask you some questions about it, want you to justify why you chose to implement it in certain ways. But they might move on to, the next question at that point. Like, okay, great. So there's nothing gained by like trying to pretend that you hadn't seen a problem, or trying to fake a communication
Right,
if you already
right.
know what the solution is. Like that doesn't help us get a strong signal for the interview, and that doesn't really help you, right? So it's best to just keep moving it, just be very transparent in that case.
Thanks for your answer. Appreciate it.
Hi, I had a question. So to introduce myself, my name is Tara. I am studying computer science and statistics. And accordingly, I was looking at the Amazon data engineering internship position. And I noticed that they asked for proficiency in like at least one of many query languages. So like SQL, Scala, MDX. And I don't know how well you guys would be able to speak to this, but I was wondering if the language that you have a background in pairs at all with the projects and departments you would get involved with if you were to intern, or if it's more of like standard within like the data engineer position, regardless of your particular skill set.
So I think with a lot of the query languages, what they're looking for is that you actually have kind of the understanding of at least one of them, because if you know one fairly well, that skill can translate over to learning another one fairly quickly. So, and a lot of the tools, especially I think in the data science realm, they support using, multiple different query languages so you can pick the one optimal to you. I think this is true of Athena, so if you're building a data lake, you have options. You're not locked into one query language. And Mark can jump in here because I think he might know more about Athena. And
Athena is just SQL, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you. See, so maybe not that one.
Yeah.
But I think we do have some data lake options where you can switch your language, right? So
if you do more EMR type stuff, or if you're using something like Glue, where you got the options to use a Python or there's Python or Scala, you have the options there with if you're using Glue, things like that. So there are different options. And a lot of the times, the language you're using is going to be determined by the type of work you're doing. So a lot of times, customers are, especially now, there are a lot of polyglot customers out there. So they're utilizing different languages, the language that makes sense for the solution they're developing. So a lot of the world, I think the world is kind of shifting in that kind of direction as well, where the language is more, it's not about what language you know, it's about what language you should use for a specific problem set. So
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and I have one final question. Backtracking a little bit, Vaughn, what you said earlier about being able to implement those processes. A lot of it sounded like you were able to, take those lean principles and apply it to that process and be able to cut down and, make that much more revenue for the company. Is there a specific team at Amazon that's dedicated to lean, or was it more of a, you got feedback from whoever was available?
That's a good question. I'm sure there may be a dedicated team. I just did what I did because my background's on process improvement. So for me, it was very easy. I do process management. So I can look at a process and say, let's figure out what's the extra junk in this process that we don't need, and pull it out and make it efficient. So I'll be honest, I didn't really call upon anybody from a skill set because that's what I came into Amazon with. And I came into Amazon, my manager, bless his heart, he's gone now. He's in China doing some other work for other people. But he was very blunt and was like, ask. And I was like, once he gave me permission to like not be afraid, because I was nervous. I was thinking these folks are a lot smarter than me, because Amazon's a lot of type A personalities. And people are very sharp. I thought I was smart. I know I'm smart. Let me not think. I knew I was smart, but I met a lot of smarter folks than me. I was like, oh, okay. So I was very shy the first 3-4 months because I was thinking, okay, let me just observe. And he was like, you need to step out your shell and get out there and get this information because you got to report to the VP in 2 months. That's all I needed to hear was that he was going to throw me in front of the VP to present my project. So I just I just let myself go and just went on and asked questions and learn and be curious. I go back to that again. And I just asked everyone, what do you do? Why do you do what you do? And help me understand. Is it value add or you're just taking up time? And some people had ego where they didn't want to come out of the process. And I had to have backbone and commit and say like, look, we don't need you in this process. Thanks for your time. I'm gonna send you a report and we'll send you something in the month you're done. other people had other value they're adding. So I think I missed your question, but at the end of the day, I just got comfortable enough to go out and ask questions and figure it out, because Amazon has a lot of ambiguity when it comes to certain things, and you need to be okay with not knowing everything, but also be okay with getting out to ask the questions and figure it out. Because coming back to the table and saying, well, I didn't know, someone's going to look at you as like, well, why are you here? Because we need you to add value. Go figure it out and come back to me with an answer in 3 days. I hate to sound rough, but we got customers to take care of. So let's get off your ego and stop getting nervous and let's go figure it out. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you.
You're not going to be spoon fed.
You're not. And I wanted that. Let me not lie. I had that in my company before that. I was a GSK for 9 years. Very family oriented, all that good stuff. We all had consensus before we went to lunch or something like that. That's not happening here. Just you just need to deliver and have a good time while doing it, because know that everyone you're working with is smart and bright. And so we're all learning together, and we're all trying to figure it out for the customer because we like what we do. So bring you to the table, bring your best you to the table. And if someone's smarter than you, fine, learn. Be willing enough to let that ego go and be willing to learn from them as well, because that only makes you better in the end. I feel like we just had real talk, so it's all good.
Yeah, you answered my question very well, so thank you.
No problem. Well, I know we're down to a minute if I'm correct on that. So who would like the final answer for the golden ticket? There's no golden ticket, by the way. You just want you to. Or if there's not one, I want to say 2 things before I pass it back to Carolyn. One, thank you to Mark. Can y'all give them a clap, a virtual clap? Mark and Kenny for volunteering today. I know they have a lot on their plate. And be honest, we had someone else today who had to drop out. So I'm glad Mark came in and Kenny came in like, let's do this. So that's the type of people we hire at Amazon. Someone who's willing to just roll up the sleeves and get the job done. And they care. So thank you from me to you. I thank you all for taking time out today to give back to the students. And I am going to send Carolyn some information afterwards so that you can get in contact with me. In addition, someone's already asking for my LinkedIn account. I'll pass that information back to Carolyn as well.
Hey, Vaughn, I had one last question. Sorry about that.
Dude, I told you, I said you had one. Oh yeah, what's up?
So I was wondering that how is Amazon, like, preparing against its competitors like Walmart for like the upcoming future? I'm just wondering, based on like what are your like future goals that you have like in plan? Just wondering.
We can wonder when we can talk offline. I'm not gonna tell you what our future goals are in a recorded conversation.
Not like the private, but just like how do you plan on like facing competitions like Walmart based on what they've been
let's be blunt. Amazon does not compare itself to anyone else. Fact. So I would say alternative fact, but then it gets political and that's kind of funny. But no, fact, we don't compare ourselves to anyone else. We compare ourselves to ourselves and look at what our customers want. So I don't think at any point in time are we looking at Walmart, Target, or anyone else to say, well, what are they doing and how do we need to do that better? I think we look at the factor of what does our customer want and then work backwards from that. I mean, we were talking Prime before Walmart announced their Prime yesterday. We've been doing it for years. We've been talking subscription for what, 15 years now? So a lot of these factors, we're not asking permission to copy someone else. We look at our customers, say what makes it easier, more cost effective and efficient for them, and then start there on the problem.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it was a good summary. Thank you.
It's all good, dude. It's all good.
All right. Well, I just want to say special thank you to the Amazon team, Vaughn, Mark, and Kenny. Thank you again so much. And I also want to say thank you to all of those who attended, as well as RamDev for hosting. So we greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to, you can email the Engineer Career Services team and we'll go ahead and respond back to you.
Kudos to you all as well. I'll see a few of y'all at the career fair, hopefully.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.